Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the program. It is Swinging for the Fences, episode number 7, the Deadline Edition. Man, episode number 7, Swanee. We're actually at the trading deadline. Unbelievable, man.
Unlike some teams, we're actually going to do something today.
Are you sure? Are you 100%? Because judging by the tag names in our description of ourselves, it looks like we're on the same page as they're probably not going to do a damn thing.
No, I think they're going to be who knows? Anything's crazy. I still wonder. Wonder if they maybe sell a piece off, and then open the spin can of how this really helps the team. You may think we lost somebody, Steve, but we really gained someone.
Well, I'll say this: I got an interesting opinion on that. Of course, if anyone wants to join us live today, you can do that through the Facebook page, Swinging for the Fences. You can also do it on YouTube. This show is streaming live, so you can leave comments. We'd love to have you part of along with the show. I don't know why I couldn't spin that out, but all right. So let's get into it. A lot of interesting things happened over the week. The Mariners went 4-2 on their 6-game road trip, which was, I guess, outstanding. I would probably start with the Mariner offense had some pretty good games. Of course, they reverted there to what they usually do, double-digit strikeouts and can't score in late innings. But you brought it up, man. And of course, if anybody's watching live, you can see the tags in our names, and I guess we're going to start there. A lot of interesting things happened this week, Swanee. Number one, our division rivals got better. I don't know, you can't. I know a lot of Mariner fans laughed at the notion that Max Scherzer went to Texas, but you know what though I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it as that's a hell of a move. Bringing in granted he's 39, but I'll tell you what, man, he's been to multiple World Series. Won multiple series rings, and for a team with a lot of players who have never been to the playoffs or who have been to the playoffs, have very little playoff experience, you bring in a guy who's been there, done that multiple times, who understands how to get there, who understands to navigate the second half, get into the playoffs, and then also navigate the playoffs to get to where you want to go. I don't think there's any better person to bring in than a guy like Max Scherzer.
Is it a Justin Verlander to Houston in 2017 type of thing? No, I don't think so. He's a guy that's going to get them over the top. He's a guy that could help them get them over the top. He might not be the reason, but he could certainly be a factor. Anybody who's shitting on this, I don't know.
You don't watch baseball.
I don't know if you've been watching baseball for the last 17 years, 16 years, and how that guy doesn't help a team. I mean, there's not a whole lot of starting pitchers in the American League that he wouldn't immediately walk in and crack the lineup in the top 3.
Yeah. Including
our Seattle Mariners.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
And of course the Rangers doubled down and brought in Jordan Montgomery from the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. So, and all of this isn't a coincidence because they lost Nathan Eovaldi to a forearm strain. Yeah. And of
Jacob
course,
DeGrom's been MIA all season pretty much.
Yeah, he's out. But I mean, Eovaldi's coming back, so you're gonna have that at the top of your rotation. Of course, they have John Gray. The Rangers, their bullpen is decent. I would probably expect for them to solidify the back end of their bullpen as we get closer to the deadline. Don't sleep on the Texas Rangers. I know a lot of people thought they were going to fall off. And they did a little bit, but they're still the Texas Rangers, and they're still a first-place team, and they're still incredibly good.
They're still 14 games over 500.
100%. 100%.
That's the third best record in the American League.
The California Angels, I still call them the California Angels because I just
appropriate.
They're always going to be the California Angels. Yeah. I don't know how you felt about their moves. They get Reynaldo Lopez and Lucas Giolito from the White Sox. Giolito, say what you will, I think he's actually a solid starter. He's definitely going to give you innings. They needed to solidify. They needed a piece for the bullpen. They got Lopez, but then they turned around and got Randall Grichuk and C.J. Cron, the former Angel from the Rockies. And I don't know how you feel about this, but to me, it reeked a little bit of desperation. I have a feeling that They already understand that Shohei Ohtani is not going to be back after this season. I think they just decided to go all in, try to win as much as they possibly can as throwing Ohtani a bone to, I guess prove to them that they are committed to winning. But I think it's a little too late because he's been there for 5 years already. He's been through bad drafts. He's been through bad deadlines and bad off seasons to the point where I think he understands what the Angels are all about. I think it's too late, but I got to be honest with you, regardless of even if I feel like it's desperation, I thought the Grichuk move and the Grichuk and Cron move was actually a pretty good move for the Angels.
Is it desperation? Yeah, probably. But if you look at the standings, look, they're right there. They're the Mariners. They're the Mariners record-wise. Are they the Mariners roster-wise? No, but they're probably a lot better with Mike Trout and a healthy Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. But they're the Mariners. I think the way I look at it is it reek of desperation? Yeah, probably a little bit.
Probably.
But it also reeks of a team that says, hey, you know what? We're not that bad. We've got some pieces. Let's see if they can add to this and go for it. What it really tells me is that's a team that, for right or wrong, and time's going to tell, for right or wrong, they got the balls to at least do something and make a play. That's more than I can say for some other teams, at least right now, including the team that we know and love. So maybe that'll change the next, 27 hours. I don't know. But they're going for it. Other teams aren't. And I think I'm more looking at the teams right now. I think I'm paying more attention to the teams that aren't doing shit than I am the teams that are doing stuff. Just because I'm the anticipation, the waiting game type of thing. So not bad moves for them. Is it going to be enough? Probably not. They've got the same mountain to climb over as the M's. The difference is they've got maybe they've got some better offensive weapons. They probably added some better offensive weapons. Probably because some of the guys that are still in the Mariners lineup are just throwing up donuts, including a guy we thought might get traded in the next 48 hours. Right. Teoscar Hernandez.
Yep. The Houston Astros brought back former Mariner, former Astro Kendall Graveman to their bullpen, which, if you're an Astro fan, it's not sexy, but I'll tell you what, Graveman can still throw innings in the bullpen. He's still effective. But I fully expect the Houston Astros to make some sort of move before the deadline. I think when you look at the Houston Astros, listen, man, they've been good. They didn't start off great, but you know what, though? They got everybody healthy. They started playing good ball, and I think they're at that point where it makes sense for the Houston Astros to figure out a way to bring another bat into that lineup. I fully expect to see that. Same way that I fully expect to see Boston make a move and the New York Yankees to make a move. I fully expect to see all of that.
Kendall Graveman, he's done. Does he have anything left anyway? Well, really, what I'm also looking at is who did they give up to get him? Had anybody heard of Corey Lee before 3 days ago?
That would be nothing.
I mean, I follow baseball. For part of what I do is follow a baseball team for a living, including basically everybody they play in the American League West. Never heard of Corey Lee. Now, I'm not saying he's not good. He could turn out to be very, very good. Just it wasn't a guy that was on the radar. And that's saying something considering all the injuries the Astros have had this season and how many guys have stepped up and been a big part of their lineup that have had to come up from the minors. So they didn't really give up a whole lot for him. And the Astros are not done. They're not done, like you just said. So I was going to have Stan Pat was going to be my name today, but I don't want to disparage Pat Gillick because I still don't blame him.
I don't blame him
for the
either.
faults of 2 decades ago, but yeah.
By the way, that's
do nothing.
By the way, that still burns you up, doesn't it? Because it still burns me the fuck up. Oh, that's 2001, 2000. Oh,
if Gillick would have made a move and went out and got a bat, I'm like, you do not know. There are certain things, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm getting older. Yeah, I can go from a good mood to a grumpy mood quick. I can go from a grumpy mood to pissed off and lit the fuck. My fuse is just the wick is about that short, and I could get pissed. That's one that'll set me off.
Oh, 100%.
Well, if Gillick would have done something, we'd have had that World Series in 01. I'm like, dude.
By the way, no, I don't think so. But by the way, had they just done the right thing and brought back A-Rod after the 2000 season and surrounded him with Ichiro and Boone, Maybe that might get past the Yankees, but I don't think they were ever going to get past the Diamondbacks.
No,
Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling. Are you kidding me?
You 2 Cy Young winners anchoring your pitching rotation, and it's when you get in the playoffs, as we've seen before, that pitching rotation is really about your top 3 pitchers. It's not about your 5-man rotation. You're not running a 5-man rotation in the playoffs,
right?
Because there's always travel days in there. At most, you're running 4. Really, you're running 3. Yeah, no, I
don't think they get past the Diamondbacks.
Here's a better question: would they even, not to get off topic, would they even have brought Brett Boone in if A-Rod had stayed? Okay.
I think so, because if you remember, Brett Boone for that 2001 season was on a 1-year veteran minimum,
yes.
Right? I think he signed for like 1 year at 1.5.
Yeah, he hadn't done much with the Reds coming into that.
Correct. Well, I think he was coming from San Diego.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. All right. Well. Yeah, I know we got off topic. It still burns me up too. 2001 still burns me up. But that brings us to the Seattle Mariners. And of course, we haven't heard a damn fucking thing coming from Mariners camp, except for possibilities of who we can sell. Now, I posted this today because, the reality is there's a big difference between getting pieces at the trading deadline and getting pieces during the offseason.
Mm-hmm.
I think everybody understands that the Mariners have struggled so mightily just to get to where we are at this point in the season. And I think a lot of teams around the league, if not all teams around the league, understand that they probably look at the Mariners as maybe desperate to bring in a bat. And I actually think teams use that to take advantage of. Sure. And I don't see Jerry Dipoto as being a punk.
No,
at all. I actually
was. Or would have been.
You could easily get over on Zarenzik, but the thing about it is,
Basie too.
I think Jerry Dipoto is the type of guy where if he's not getting at least equal value back in return, he's not going to make a deal, right? So it's like, you want to bet? That's cool. We want Miller, we want Wu, and he's basically saying, listen, that's not equal value. And he's not going to make a move just to make a move in spite of the fact that Texas made moves and the Angels made moves. That's not Jerry Dipoto. Like, if there was a deal out there that was good enough to make, I probably think that would have already went down by now. I think he's, and conversely, as far as sellers as well too, it's like, Teoscar's available, Ty France is available, but they're, I'm sure teams are like, that's cool too. They've had rough years this year, and we're not giving you anything except for maybe a mid-tier prospect at best. And Jerry Dipoto is probably thinking he's probably thinking that doing nothing probably is the best thing to do at this point, because he's not getting anything. He's not getting anything of equal value, which is what he probably would be able to do in the offseason, because nobody's in contention in the offseason.
Sure. Here's another factor, though, that I think plays in, because I don't know how most other teams are, but I know how the Mariners are. They are an organization, I think, to a fault, that listens to fans too much, because it's about asses and seats more than anything else.
I would like to think no, but maybe.
I think their safe play is no fan. Here's my point. No fan is going to be pissed that Dipoto didn't turn around and trade away Cal Raleigh, didn't trade away Ty France, didn't trade away Paul Sewald, didn't trade away Teoscar Hernandez. No fan's going to go, what are you doing holding on to this guy? The only person, probably Colton Wong, that people would go, yeah, get rid of him, because he's only been here 1 year. He's in a bad year. There's no emotional investment. And that's really what the whole Mariner fan base is an emotional investment. Now, Teoscar, he's also only been here a year, but he's already created some memories and the good feelings. Raleigh's only been up a couple seasons. It's not like these guys are stalwarts here that have been here a decade. But he had the double last year. So from a public relations standpoint, not getting rid of any of these players, no one's going to be pissed. No one's going to go, what the hell were you doing not shipping off that guy or not shipping off that guy? The only thing I could think of is people might say, hey, why didn't you trade some of these minor league prospects? Because we're not emotionally invested in them. We don't really care about Emerson Hancock. We don't, just like they didn't really care about Mason McCoy, who just got traded the other day. Right. We don't know him. He was only a Tacoma guy. No one's going to care if he trades away Brian O'Keefe. If anybody's looking for a catcher that can come and be a backup catcher that's got some pop.
That's got some pop.
So from PR stand, I'm not saying that the PR is what's driving all the decisions, but it's also something. Hey, we could do this. Hey, what do you think? PR people, what do you think how do you think this will fly over? Oh, you don't think they'll care? Okay, good. I gotta wonder if it creeps in at a 5% chance. It maybe plays maybe a 5% factor in what they do or what they don't do. They're totally safe not doing anything, especially after the last week when the hype train and the dick sucking from the media has come full swing around, and how we've won 6 of 8. We're rolling. Okay, 6 of 8 is a good start on a hot streak. It is.
I can smell, dude. I can smell the cock on the media's breath right now.
Did you see the Root post game yesterday?
I did not. No.
Okay,
I did not.
I know you and I have our opinions. I have not openly ripped it on this show, but yesterday it was in full swing. My God. Oh, yeah. And hey man, they won 6 of 8. I'm not trying to crap on what they've done. They have played a lot better lately. They have. They've also pissed away a game like Saturday night where the offense couldn't build on a 3-0 lead, and we'll get into that later. But right now, from a PR standpoint, why do we have to make a move? Yeah. Why should we make a move? Let the other people let them give away a prospect. We like who we have. And Service or Dipoto or Hollander can go out there and they can say that, and the fan base is going to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they have nothing. They probably have more to lose by trading away a guy who's on the Mariner roster right now.
By the way, if Jerry Dipoto, Justin Hollander, Scott Service, whoever, even gives 1% to what the fans think, they don't deserve to be in a Major League Baseball front office.
I don't know if they do. I should refine that. I don't know if they do. I think
if they're
the
listening,
people they answer to. I think the people they answer to higher up do. I think Stanton does.
Or if they're consulting with, or if they're consulting with the PR, or if they're getting pressure not to move a guy because he's a fan favorite. I'm sorry, those people don't belong in a major league front office. So the idea of building a team is for the betterment of the team, winning championship. I understand, but the fans do not equate into any part of that. The reality is, and here's the reality. Fans, are you paying attention? I'm going to tell you what the reality is, okay? Good teams that win championships are always ahead of the curve.
Mm-hmm.
They're always self-evaluating, and when a player dips and continues to dip, what they'll end up doing, especially in seasons like this, they'll get rid of those players. They'll probably trade them for depth and put themselves in a position in the offseason to bring in a better first baseman or bring in a better right fielder. And then the beat continues to move on, because the idea is to win championships. There is really no player on this roster that's quote unquote untouchable except Julio Rodriguez, obviously, because they've invested in them, right? But the reality is the end goal should be championships. And what here's the thing is I'll give Jerry Dipoto credit. You kind of have to. When he started the rebuild in 2019, 2 years later, they won 90 games.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't happen a lot. Usually it takes 3, sometimes 4 before they're actually competitive. And that's with a fucked up COVID year in between when nothing got done developmental wise.
Yeah.
Right.
I still to this day, and I'm going to think this for another decade, I still think that stunted a lot of growth for a lot of teams. But especially
I agree.
Seattle.
I agree. But the reality is, why are we pumping the brakes on staying ahead of the curve? There's obvious holes on the roster. There's needs on the roster, and I understand not wanting to sell low or get taken advantage of. I understand that.
Sure.
But if you can find a decent deal for a Teoscar Hernandez and set yourself for the offseason, do it. Like I don't buy for a minute
now. Going, we've made it this far. We're playing good. We're finally playing now. Really, in the last probably 3 weeks, 2 weeks at least, we're starting to see the things now that we thought we were going to see all season.
Right.
So we're there. We're finally there, and we'll get into the schedule later. But they've got an upcoming stretch. Not immediately. Not this upcoming week. They have an upcoming stretch of games that is prime for a hot streak. I mean, they have got a cavalcade of bums on the schedule that they could steamroll if their hitting is a little bit better. So I think they have, and what do I know? I'm not in the front office. I think, though, my gut tells me, based on past principle, with this regime, they think they have in place what they need so they can go for it. Pitching-wise is really the interesting thing there because, this starting rotation is, nobody wants to say this, but it's been patchwork here for a couple of months. How long is that going to be able to roll?
Right.
They've got a week coming up here where they've got 2 off days in the same week. That's going to help a lot. It's going to help a lot.
Sure.
I mean, they just finally had an off day last Thursday. They played a hell of a lot of games. The one day off since the All-Star game or since the All-Star break until we get to this Thursday. So it's been a heck of a stretch.
We have a comment from a Mitch Bond who's basically saying here's probably why we haven't seen any deals, because most deals would include Logan Gilbert. He's a cornerstone of our franchise. Yeah. Not worth it to give up for a potential rental piece.
I agree. I completely agree with that. When it comes to Kirby and Gilbert, you know what? I wouldn't say untouchable, Steve, because it depends on the deal, but they're on that doorstep. Those 2 pitchers, because those are guys who are potential staff aces for a decade. So those are 2 guys I do not want to see them get traded. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I think our friend there I think he's 100% correct.
This one's coming from Dre, who basically says the Blue Jays want Teo back. That's what he's hearing.
Yeah.
And I commented and I said, well, can we have Eric Swanson back?
Yeah.
Right. Can we just reverse that trade?
Will you take Cal Raleigh and we'll take Alejandro Kirk?
And then that
won't happen, but can you imagine?
And then he was like, would you do Brash for Swanson? 100%.
Oh yeah.
100%. Yeah. The only reason why Matt Brash is still in our bullpen is because he's one of DePoto's guys.
Yeah, and he's under close control, and he was supposed to be a starter. And he actually, he did start, he actually pitched very, very well as a starter. But he's been, I don't know, he hasn't been terrible as a reliever, but there's been a couple times he's had a bad inning here or there.
He hasn't been good either, and the only reason why he didn't go down to Tacoma to fix whatever he needed to fix is because he's one of DePoto's guys. 100%.
That, and they probably don't want to burn another option on him.
That's 100%. 100%. So they just left him in the bullpen. You know what? I just don't see it going down. I really don't. I don't see a trade going down. I think I get to this place because last year, I'll give you a good example. And here's another reason why. Last year at the trading deadline, we were 55-48, 7 games above 500, and firmly in a position, in a wild card position. And that held up, and it held up. And DePoto was dealing from a position of strength. He was not going to be taking advantage for the Reds. We got good value for Luis Castillo. Say what you will, it was good value for Castillo. This year is completely different. We're 3 games above 500, and we've been shaky all season long. We are not dealing from a position of strength. We're dealing from a position of weakness because, again, I just think that all teams in Major League Baseball understand what the problem with the Mariners is and understand that they might be able to sneak one past Seattle. Somebody on Facebook today brought up the idea of Alex Verdugo. And I said, listen, the problem with Verdugo is Boston and Seattle are in the exact same position right now.
Yeah.
Boston's a wild card team, is chasing a wild card spot right now. And do you really believe in your heart of hearts that we're going to be able to pry Alex Verdugo out of their lineup without giving up one of Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, or Brian Blue, and Teoscar Hernandez? Like, yeah, you might be able to. It's going to be a 2-for-2 swap, but they're not just going to replace Verdugo with Teoscar unless you include one of those starting pitchers. Where in the offseason, if you were trying to get Verdugo and no playoff chase was on the line, you might be able to get a 2-for-2 swap that involves Emerson Hancock and Teoscar Hernandez. You might be able to get value at that point, but right now, hell no, you're not going to get value. I'm sorry, man. I just don't see it.
The latest look at the new math
Okay, new math. Ooh,
New math. 54 and 51 right now. I still say it's 92 and 70 to get that last wild card spot. So unless I'm making a horrible mistake with my math here, still 38 and 19 the rest of the way they got to go.
38-19.
And that is still 666 ball. I mean, I sound like a broken record. It's probably the fifth show in a row I've said this.
100%.
But you've got to win 2 of 3 every series. Last week they did that. I'll put my bitch in a sock. Chris Swanson, shut the hell up. You said they needed to win 2 of 3. They won 2 of 3. Lord knows the radio post-game show and the manager made the biggest deal. Well, we won the series. We won the series. Really winning series, that drives me insane, the whole winning series thing. You need to be sweeping some series is number
100%.
one. Also,
100%.
Really, when you need to worry about winning a series is when you're back in the fucking playoffs. That's when you need to worry about winning a series. You take 2 of 3 from somebody, cool. But you got to start taking some 3 of 3s and 3 of 4s.
Yep.
And I think that split with Minnesota is one of the more disappointing things in recent memory. But looking at the new map, 38 and 19 the rest of the way. So it's still – they're 3 games over 500. They're at the high water mark of the season. So this is the best that they've been all season is 3 games over 500. It's happened a few times. Now, should they be more because they should have won Saturday night's game or they should have found a way to score more runs and win Saturday night's game? That's of course. But, I mean, we're still stuck in – how much progress has been made over the last month?
Well, let's find out. What, starting from July 1st?
Yeah.
So let's see. We got, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9. There's 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. 16 wins in the month of July.
Okay.
1,
It's
2,
been a
3,
decent
4,
July.
5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. 9 losses. 16 and 9.
Okay.
Not a bad month. This is actually their best month.
4 games under 500.
Yeah.
So they made, and then July 1st is when they had the win against Tampa. Is when they won the series against Tampa because they took the next 2. Played pretty good at San Francisco. Played really good at Houston. Went into the All-Star break on a high note. So has there been progress made? Yes, there has. But not world beater progress. This is not This is not June 1997. Where the M's went like 20-4 or something like that, and it basically carried them to the division title that year.
Right.
That's not what's happening. And if getting some splits and winning a series here and there, but getting a split somewhere else and dropping one, like for example, you got a 2-game series coming up soon against the Padres. You must win both of those games. To walk out with it, to even lose one of those games is a disappointment. Everybody, you want to get geeked up about the wins. Everybody does. Every loss has the weight of a person swimming with a cinder block on their shoe. Every loss is critical. Every loss is more important right now than every win. That's 100%. Simple math. That's new math.
Sure.
So it's why Saturday's game drove me just ballistically crazy. But it all gets glossed over when they come back and win the next day. And look, you can only win the game you're playing. I get that. But
what bugs me?
When I made the derogatory comment earlier about the post game, it just that encompasses all season. But it just went high heaven yesterday on Sunday. It just drove me insane.
No, it drove me insane too because this has been a continuous issue. Okay, so let me back this up and just say that this week was a good week. They, their offense overall played much better. Week. Right, it should have been a great week. I mean, they went 4-2. They should have been 5-1. But you have the Monday loss against the Twins, which was a walk-off loss, and I believe that was the extra inning walk-off loss where they could have scored and didn't. And then of course you have Saturday. You have Saturday where you actually get what was it? Who pitched that game? Saturday it was
Brian Wu.
Brian Wu. Brian Wu actually hung tough. I'll give Brian Wu very good credit. The Mariners scored 3 early. Wu gets tagged for 3, but he hung in there. They got 2 very good bullpen performances before Munoz coughed up a winning run in the bottom of the 8th. The Mariners turn around and they get a triple. They get a 1-out triple from Cade Marlowe. And then what's his,
which is amazing because I was told all guys from Tacoma are bums.
right. And
But,
oh no, but Cade Marlowe is quickly turning into a fan favorite.
Yes, he is.
He's what Sam Haggerty was in 2021.
Yeah.
And in 2020, he's the new Sam Haggerty. But
good call.
But then they get I think they get a strikeout, and then JP
Caballero strikes out.
Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Caballero strikes out. They get a beautiful at bat from JP Crawford, who is not going to chase. He's going to make you pitch to him, and if he doesn't get a pitch, he's going to take a walk, which he did. That was a beautiful at bat, and that brings up Julio.
Not only was that a beautiful at bat, let me double check this. I think he was down. I think Crawford was down 0-2 in that count.
Right.
And it's an 8-pitch at bat walk.
8-pitch at bat. That was beautiful.
That's a Picasso right there, man.
And then you get Julio, who is he's two different animals, man. Julio in the first 6 innings is very different from the Julio in the last 3. He's in that, he gets amped up to a point where, like, I really do believe that he wants to be a hero so bad. He wants to be that guy.
Yep.
And then he overswings. He swings through 2 pitches. Then of course he chases. And
it was foul ball. Probably strike 3 called that they called a ball high, and then there was one high and inside.
Right.
And then all of a sudden it's still a 2-2 pitch. So there's one that Magoo could waste, and he chases a bad pitch.
And then,
but haven't we seen that before? But Steve, he can't be the hero every night. He doesn't have to be.
Yeah, he doesn't have to be. Well, and here's the reality:
he has to poke a ball 107 feet.
Right. Well, here's
and live to play another at bat.
Here's the reality: a base hit wins the game. That's it. It's not hard math. You have 2 outs, runners on the corner. You just need 1 to tie.
Sure, and if you poke it, at worst you have JP at second base still in scoring position.
That's exactly right. And of course, it's now Julio is now a 9th inning liability, 100%. I don't care, Mariner fans. You can't argue against it. I don't like sometimes numbers don't tell the entire story, and I'm a big number guy, but the reality is with runners in scoring position in the 9th inning, Julio Rodriguez is the anti-clutch. He is 100% the anti-clutch. And this is and in that game as well too, they had double-digit strikeouts again. And I don't think fans understand, Chris, what double-digit strikeouts mean to a team like this version of the Seattle Mariners. This team averages 12 strikeouts. Like when they get double-digit strikeouts, it's usually 12 to 13 strikeouts a clip, which basically means, like, this is basic arithmetic. Each side has 27 outs, 3 outs a side. So when you strike out 12, 13 times, let's go 12, you take 4 innings off the board, and that leaves you 5 innings to score more runs than your opponent.
And it's actually a little bit worse than that, because when you strike out twice in an inning where you've got a guy at second and third and 1 out, it's even worse than that. Because 100%. Not only have you wasted any, you've really squandered an opportunity along with it.
It also by the way, that also lets you know just how good Mariner pitching is, because they've kept this team where they're at, despite offensive deficiencies.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. The pitching, with the exception of Brian Wu, the starters had been really good lately.
Yeah.
I mean, I know he's suddenly become a fan favorite. Maybe not a fan favorite, but I don't know. He's got a little bit of a following. I don't know. I swear to God, all you have to have is a ticket and 1 bag in your hand coming up from Arkansas, and it's like you get a free pass for everything for some reason. I don't know why. Brian Wu, I don't know if I was going to make him my loser of the week, but I mean, here's what was interesting. He didn't really pitch bad against Arizona. He really didn't.
I didn't think. No, I thought he hung tough.
Hold at 73 pitches. He was 5 innings, 73 pitches.
Okay, I thought he hung
and no strikeouts, and he walked 2 guys. That's really not all that bad of a start. I mean, He certainly pitched good enough to win. He really did. Yeah. I thought he might have got hooked a little bit early, but you had mentioned you've mentioned this plenty of times before. Are they going to start limiting innings? Are they going to start limiting pitch 100%. Counts on some of these young guys? It's got to be. But he hasn't won a game since July 3rd. He hasn't pitched well in a game since July 8th. I mean, he got touched up pretty good against the Twins in that one game. He gave up 7 runs, 6 earned in 3 1/3. Toronto knocked him around pretty good. He did strike out 7 guys, but he got knocked around pretty good. He's not been pitching all that well. He only pitched once this last week. He had an extra day's rest. So I was expecting a little bit better of a game from him. And he gave a decent game.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you're only going to give a decent game after you've had an extra day's rest or an extra turn in the rotation rest. I don't know. These are the issues that prevent the Mariners from having good weeks, from going from good to great weeks, because eventually they drop a couple of games, reverting back to, I believe what Service coined the term as chaos ball. Yeah.
Right. But this is like chaos. This is like chaos ball, like on an 8 ball of cocaine. This is like hyper chaos ball. Like I'll say this, man. When you shorten the game from 9 to 5 because you struck out 12 times in a game, and then your starter gets clipped early, and you're putting a 3-0 hole. You're down 4-0, 3-0, 4-0 in the first inning because your starter got clipped a little early. It makes it so incredibly hard to come back.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. This team is not a good come from behind team.
1,039 strikeouts so far this season. That is second in Major League Baseball, obviously second in the American League, behind the Minnesota Twins. So divide that by, they've played 105 games. They are averaging 9.89 strikeouts a game.
Yeah. Basically 10 strikeouts a game.
Wow. Yeah.
Which is,
5-inning game.
And I don't like to shit on, I know I have always been accused of being negative, but it's like, listen, man, I've been around for so long, and there had in the course of put it this way, the 2021 team was better. Last year's team second half was better.
Yeah.
And we're talking the same players. This season
minus Carlos Santana.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but this season is not. They're not good this season.
No, they've underperformed.
We're
right there. We're establishing. I think I heard the term used, and I forget who said it. We're establishing a winning tradition again. Well, there's certainly had more winning seasons than bad since about 2016. That's very true. But one playoff trip. Is that going to be enough to keep the fans engaged for another 5 years? Yeah. What if they go another 5 years without making the postseason?
It's very possible.
I don't think that'll happen. It shouldn't happen.
But
it could.
I will say this, that if Dipoto does nothing, I can't speak for you, but I can easily speak for me. If Dipoto does nothing, he is in trouble, because I actually think he loses all credibility, especially if he doesn't turn around and have a big offseason.
I completely agree with that. But he has the media on his side for the most part, and the fans on his side. So if he doesn't make any move, he can say to every critic, "Fuck you! Yeah. I don't have to do anything," and because because he's been moved up to the position he's at, I think he's insulated himself from a lot of criticism.
Yeah,
he basically has to fire himself. No one's going to.
Oh, I don't know about that. If the Mariners finish, let's say the Mariners finish the season at 500, or just a little bit above.
Okay.
And then next year they finish at 500, or a little bit above, and then they dip to a little bit under 500. You don't think 3 seasons of barely 500 baseball and 1 losing season doesn't get him fired? Or no. If he strings together back-to-back 90 loss seasons?
No, that might do it. Yeah. That might do it, or he'd step down. I mean, he'd be fired, but he'd be stepping down. Yeah. I think it would actually take back-to-back 95 loss seasons, almost. You'd have to be on, and with the talent level that's there, you'd have to be on a 2008 type season.
Yeah,
screw job. The odds of that are pretty slim at this point. Anything can change. I mean, career-ending injury could happen to one or two players that could change everything. But no, I think if they miss the playoffs this year and the next 2 years, but we're slightly above 500 or at 500, I think some people might start to question it. But I don't think he would lose his job because we can make it back. We believe he got us to the playoffs, Steve. He can do it again. And look, when you got a TV station and a contracted radio station in your back, and only a handful of local reporters that will have the gumption to call you out. And I'm not going to mention their names because I don't want to get them in trouble. Right. But there's a couple of them who I have an immense amount of respect for. And they will, hey, man, when the shit stains on the wall, they'll report it. And they will do so without fear because they have got to a point where they've been able to achieve that level of credibility. Right. And
Divish has already done it.
Them.
Yeah, Divish has already done it.
That's why I love Ryan Divish. He's been a friend of mine for a long time.
I do too.
And he's one of the few people that can. And here's the thing: is he's actually respected enough in that clubhouse. He can write what he writes, and nobody's going to blackball him. Nobody's because I think you got to be around for a while to achieve that, and he certainly has. No, I'm frankly proud of him. Thank God we have that guy covering the Mariners for the Seattle Times.
I don't think the Mariners pick a fight with a company that buys its ink by the barrel. I just don't. You're picking on the wrong people. If you blackball a dude like Divish.
We saw what happened to Jeff Baker a few years
ago. I know.
We saw what happened to Larry LaRue a few years ago.
Right, and I think the Mariners understood exactly. There was a lot of fallout from both of them.
And there was different people in charge. To be fair, there was some different people in charge, but there's also some people around now who are in charge who were around back then too.
So, what do you, as we get closer, what are you expecting come the deadline?
I'm expecting 2 minor leaguers to get traded for a bullpen guy. At most, it'll be a bullpen guy you've never heard of, and it'll be 2 minor league guys from Modesto or Everett. That's what I expect.
4.
And if I got less than that, I would not be stunned. Because they'll do something to do something. I just don't think they'll be. I mean, they'll be looking for another type of maybe another left-hander, another possibly for the bullpen to help out Spire and Saucedo. So you've got one more lefty in the bullpen. Something like that, something along those lines. That's it. I don't see him selling off any. I think with the last 2 weeks, the games that they've been able to win the last 2 weeks, even though it hasn't skyrocketed them in the standings, I think it's been enough to where they can sit there and go, you know what, we don't need to do anything. Right. We think we have the guys in place. Now, unless they get wowed by a big trade. Unless somebody ponies up for Sewald and gives them something big, or Teoscar Hernandez. I think it would be a mistake to keep Teoscar Hernandez, to be perfectly honest with you. This guy has no future with the team. 100%. Unless his numbers are so bad that his market value in the offseason is going to be massively low and he resigns.
Well, right. That's the gamble, right? Because if he doesn't, if he continues to have the type of season that he's had, right, in order for the Mariners to get their comp picks, they would have to offer him a QO.
Yeah, they got
and the problem with that is if his market has plummeted to the point where he accepts the QO, then we have Teoscar Hernandez for another season, which is a gamble. I'm with you. I don't want to take. I don't want to take that gamble.
It would not stun me though if they said, you know what, if we lose, we give them that qualifying offer, and we lose them, and we get the compensatory picks. We'd rather have the picks to work with, because that's if you're making good picks, that's not long term. That's not the worst thing to do in the world. It really isn't. But this was supposed to be a team. I will remind people again. Yep. This was supposed to be a team that reached the American League Championship Series this year. Yeah. Right now, if you're going to tell me who's in the ALCS, it's going to be Texas and Tampa, or Texas and Houston. I don't think Baltimore wins deep in the playoffs. Just my hunch. But at this point, doesn't look like it's going to be the Seattle Mariners. They certainly have the pitching to do it, but when everything gets magnified and you're not pitching, when you make the playoffs and you don't get to feast on the fourth or fifth starter in every rotation and get to see the guys on the back end, and you're facing the 1, 2, and 3 every single time out, it's just going to be different. I don't know. The Mariners have done just enough, and I mean just enough, to stay in this. If they would have had a 2-5 week or a 2-4 week this week, or definitely a 1-5 week, I think we'd start writing the obituary. But they've done just enough to keep a hand and a nose and their mouth breathing above the tombstone, that they're not out of it yet. So it's kind of put them in this position. Look, even Jerry Scott Service was being asked 2 weeks ago about, hey, who do you expect to lose? Who do you expect to be, sold off? And Here we are. Not a ton of ground has been made up in 2 weeks, but all of a sudden we're talking possible addition.
You know what? I just read between the lines from what Depoto's been saying over the course of the last week. He hasn't been committed. He's been non-committal on buying. He's been non-committal on selling, and he throws out the "we could always do nothing."
Yeah. Well, when you mentioned that he's at the risk of losing all credibility, I don't disagree with you. But for me, I've already lost it.
Yeah,
I lost it this last offseason.
I'm very here's the thing.
I lost it in the 17th inning of Game 3 of the American League Divisional Series last year against the Astros when they couldn't push one goddamn run over the plate.
Right. That was a precursor. That was your precursor to the 2023
season. Yeah. So I'm 9 months into my sick of this dude.
Yeah.
And his bullshit, his radio show, and which is a PR appearance.
Yeah, sure. My thing is,
he can act like he's being held accountable by the flagship station that pays to air their games.
When he got hired and he tried to get the team to the playoffs, that was the right decision to do. It didn't work out. And by the way,
those year pieces before, were in place, that was not a bad move.
Exactly. The year before, he tore it down. The Mariners boasted a top 10 offense. They were very good. That Mariner offense was very good, and it was their pitching that held them back on 2 of those runs. I believe it was 2016, 2018. And then he tears it down. And I listen, man, to go from rebuilding in your first year to 2 years later winning 90 games, that's a testament, right? It's a testament of a GM that understands to stay ahead of the curve, the rebuilding curve. But I also believe that he plateaued. I believe that he covets his pitching so much that it's listen, when they didn't pull in Luis Arias this offseason from Minnesota because he didn't want to give up pitching, and then when he didn't bring in Brian Reynolds because he didn't want to give up pitching, he's plateaued. I think he overvalues his prospects to the point where I think he's almost gun shy on pulling the trigger on something of significance. We're not talking we're not talking small moves. I think Dipoto is very good at making equal value deals, but when it comes to something of significance, it's got to be the perfect scenario, which was the Luis Castillo trade last summer. That was
I'm going to put devil's advocate on you and say that if the only reason they're still alive right now is because he didn't let go of any pitching, because you've had a Bryce Miller come up, because you've had a Brian Wu come up, and at least help keep the ship,
right,
keep the bilge pump going so the ship doesn't sink on the good ship Mariner.
Right.
So, is that the reason? I just think it's an argument you could make that, hey, maybe not parting away with some of that pitching has helped this season.
And
but it's not going to help every season. It's not going to help next season.
Okay, fine. So you didn't want to get rid of pitching for upper echelon players, but you still could have re-signed Carlos Santana, and then we don't have a DH issue this year.
You could have gone with anybody else than Colton Wong at second base.
100%. That was, and that's the one thing that makes me second guess him, was the fact that he didn't have the foresight to see that Adam Frazier wasn't done. Adam Frazier
was one of their better hitters down the stretch. Adam Frazier was one of the reasons they made the playoffs. Adam Frazier had some key hits in that two-game series win against Toronto.
100%. But you know what, though?
I think he finally proved himself in that, and maybe the price was going to be too high. Well, I don't know. They're paying Colton Wong $9 million. Well, let me look up what Frazier got from Baltimore.
I'm doing it right now because here's the thing. It's like
he's making $8 million this year.
Yeah, he's making $8 million.
That's cheaper than Colton Wong, unless I'm mistaken. And somebody out there on the live stream can correct my dumb ass, but
the Mariners are paying Colton Wong 8.5, and the Brewers are kicking in 1.5 on his $10 million contract, right?
Okay.
So
it's really, essentially the same thing for less production.
For less per year, it's basically $500,000 cheaper.
It's a flop.
By the way, on a 1-year deal. Frazier didn't sign a multi-year deal with Baltimore. He signed a 1-year deal. So not having the foresight to bring back Adam Frazier for a 1-year deal, you probably would have been able to get him at that price, maybe even cheaper. Who knows? But you part ways with him, and then not having the foresight to bring Carlos Santana back because you didn't want to give him a multi-year deal. But if you would have came to him correct on a 1-year deal, he probably comes back.
On the bright side, they got rid of Jesse Winker.
Yeah. But you know what's funny is
I'm picking a scab there. I probably shouldn't do that. But I wanted to look up. I wanted to look up Carlos Santana's numbers real quick.
Yeah.
235 still. His OPS is 732 this season, or it was for Pittsburgh.
Yeah, he just got traded to Milwaukee.
Went to the Brewers, so
yeah.
There's been some underperformance there too.
Sure.
However, I don't know. There was also some veteran leadership as well,
100%.
which I think was lost.
100%. I mean, those are the type of deals that make me second guess them. And then, this season that allegedly was supposed to be a World Series caliber type roster, and then it is what it is, man. If he does nothing and then fails to do nothing but lateral moves in the offseason, I'm 100% done. Nothing else can become relevant because you kind of have an understanding that the Seattle Mariners are not going to be winning a world championship anytime soon.
Yeah. So why are you doing it?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Why are you doing it? Just to have butts go through the turnstiles?
100%.
I don't know. Like I said, I think I've done 9 months ago.
100%. All right. So we're at that point of the show where we look back at the week it was. We pick our winners and losers. So kick us off, man. Kick us off.
You know what? My loser, I'm going to go with when there's a couple picks here. I'm actually going to go. I would go with Brian Wu, but he only pitched once, so he gets off the hook. I'm going to go with Teoscar Hernandez. He had that walk-off win last Saturday against the Blue Jays, and all of a sudden he's back started up. Okay, and then he didn't. I think he was hitless against the Blue Jays on Sunday in their loss. Since that walk-off last Saturday against Toronto, he's had 31 at-bats. He's had 4 hits. That's not good. No. None of those hits were extra base hits either. Whereas in that Blue Jays series and against the Twins, the previous series was actually good. No extra base hits, 14 strikeouts in those 31 at-bats, and 1 walk.
By the way, that's for Mariner fans, I'll tell you what, man, they love that ratio. They're all about the ratio. Sure. I got a loser and I got an honorable mention.
Okay.
That came close. My loser is Julio Rodriguez.
Okay.
Fuck you, man. Yeah, I'll say it straight to your face, man. Fuck you. You got the contract. The Mariners gave you the money after basically 1 month of service time because you were supposed to be the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And this isn't just what happened on Saturday. This has been happening every time that he steps to the plate with late innings. And the Mariners have 1 out, 2 outs, no outs, and you come to the plate. You're like JoJo, you're JoJo, the amped up dog, and you're so excited to be up in those situations to the point where you're entirely trying to do way too much instead of taking. Like, I'll give you a good example. I'll give you a really fucking good example. Do you remember the 1989 NLCS?
Yes.
Giants, Cubs. Okay.
Yes.
And I believe it was a pivotal game 4. In the 9th inning, the Giants get the bases loaded, and who steps to the plate? Will Clark, who, by the way, is a second-year player in 1989. Okay? He has the biggest at bat of his career, and the first thing that you see him doing on TV is he's taking a deep breath. He's got his bat in his hand, and he looks at the situation. He goes, and he's calming himself down because he understands the magnitude of what's going on. He steps up and he rips like a 2 RBI single. Giants win. Julio Rodriguez, he might understand the situation, but he's not calming himself down. He's not doing anything except wanting to be that guy. And he doesn't realize if that he actually just calmed down a little bit and took a deep breath and waited on his pitch, he would actually end up being that guy. 100%. He would be that guy if he would just calm the fuck down in high leverage situations, period, point blank. This is the type of shit that fucks up weeks. This is the type of shit that fucks up reputations too, because you're supposed to be that guy. You're the poster child. You're the new Junior.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, was Junior clutch in those situations? 100%. From the day that he came into the league at 19 years old, Junior was that guy. That dude was swinging his big dick left and right. 100%. That dude was clutch.
I heard somebody say that Junior was never clutch because he didn't have a lot of walk-off hits. The walk-off he had against the Yankees in August of '95. You know why he didn't have a lot of walk-off? Because he got intentionally walked.
He got intentionally walked. And it was either he was intentionally walked or the Mariners were already up by 3 runs at that point.
Yeah.
But by the way, when the game was on the line, Junior was clutch.
Oh,
clutch.
Yes.
Clutch. Julio is not clutch. Period. And until he actually can prove it, sorry, dude, you don't have the clutch gene until you can actually prove you have it. By the way, my honorable mention is Andres Munoz.
Yeah.
Okay. By the way, this dude actually has triple-digit fastballs, and for a team that utilizes every pitcher's fastball, why are the Mariners insistent that he's using his weak slider? Like that's like the slider is the setup piece, the setup pitch for the fastball, and he's just dumping sliders in there. And by the way, Andres Munoz, I thought would be the perfect succession to the closer's role, because we have Paul Sewald, who is supposed to be our Swiss Army knife pitcher who can come in the 6th all the way through the 8th.
I was actually hoping he would move into the closer role and Munoz would, or I'm sorry, I was hoping Sewald would move back to the 7th or 8th inning guy or one of them, and Munoz would develop that closer role. But right now, I don't think I'd want Munoz in that closer role.
When's the last time that
he's still a 2-pitch pitcher?
Right. Well, that's fine. It's fine. That's fine as if you're using your fastball as your out pitch, right? So you have triple digit and you can throw it high and tight and get people to swing.
He's trying to use the slider as the out.
He's using that slider way too much, and I actually think it's by design. I don't know. I think it's by design by the Mariner coaching.
That's a good honorable mention. My hero of the week.
And then a hero comes along.
This is going to be a little surprise. You might laugh at me on this one. I'm going to go with Ty France. I thought he had a pretty good week. 8 of 26. The strikeouts are down. He did have 5 Ks this week. He didn't have massive hits, but just the sign of consistency of breaking out. He hasn't been a detriment to the lineup this past week, and I think the results show. I think that's one of the reasons they went 4-2 this week. I was actually happy to see Ty France battle a little bit here and there. He only had he had 2 walks, so he didn't have like J.P. Crawford type area as far as walking, but that's not a terrible week. That's hitting 320. No. I'll take that.
Yeah, well, especially considering Ty has been basically non-existent all season. It's nice.
He's made a couple good defensive plays too, which that certainly doesn't hurt.
Well, right. I think it's I don't know. I think I said it last week. I thought maybe Ty had been playing hurt. You know what I mean? Because he
could very well be true.
He was not. He looked uncomfortable on every at bat. It looked like he was lost up the plate there for a minute. But it's nice seeing Ty come through. I guess we're calling him heroes of the week. My hero of the week is Paul Sewald.
Okay.
100%. I mean,
I thought you might go with JP, but that's a good call.
You know what? But you know what? You could go with either one of them. But when you look at the stretch Sewald's had, 4. What was it? 1, 2, 3, 4, Well, hold on. Let's look at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 saves and 1 win.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like, and you know what's interesting about it is there was a stretch like 2 weeks ago where Seawald was kind of getting tagged a little bit. He would still hang on, but
Sure.
I think there was that one performance where I think the Mariners were up by 3 and he gave up a home run, but he still came back to shut it down. But Paul Seawald's looked good this week. Looked very good this week. He basically looked every bit the relief pitcher that I know that he is. But JP Crawford, honorable mention. I think you kind of have to. JP right now has been our best consistent hitter as far as getting on base. He's been it all season long. Like, I actually think this is JP's best season as a pro.
I think so too, and I think he's developed into a quiet leadership role. Even though he's a young guy, he's not that super young. You want to say he's been here since 2017, 2018.
I thought it was like 2019. Was because he was a part of the Gene Segura deal, right?
You are correct.
Yeah,
you are correct. But it just feels like he's been here a long time. But it just feel like he's developing into a quiet leadership role. So we're seeing that, and I'm glad. I'm very glad to see that. You're right. 2019 season. I'm sorry, 2019.
I thought so.
My 17, 18, and 19 years at work all bled together.
And I think he won a Gold Glove in 2020, the shortened 2020 season. But I actually think this
should have won one in 2019 too.
I think this is the best season of his career. Gold Glove notwithstanding, this has been the best season of his career.
He's become a tough out. He's had a couple of strikeouts and he's been caught looking a couple of times. But there's a difference between I'd almost at this point, and this seems insane to say because you're always supposed to guard the plate with 2 outs. I'm less mad when I see a called strike 3 when a guy just gets fooled versus them facing shit that's a foot off the plate.
Right.
I can at least we're to the point now. The bar has been lowered so much with strikeouts for this team. I'm to the point where I'm actually proud of a guy for striking out looking at a pitch that's actually a strike. Not a CB Buckner strike that's 4 inches off the plate like we saw yesterday's game when he was behind home plate. And credit Aaron Goldsmith on the Mariners broadcast right out of the gate. He was like, okay, this could be really interesting. We've got Buckner behind the plate, Merrill Kelly pitching, Merrill Kelly known to work the edges, CB Buckner known to have edges that are either on the edge or, 19 inches on each side. That could be called a strike or a ball. You just never know. I thought he poked fun at it, and I laughed. I was like, you know what? Thank God somebody doing a game brought that up. I thought that was a good call by Aaron Goldsmith.
Oh God, it makes you live for the days of guys like Jim Joyce. Who was the guy? His name was Tim. What was his name? The umpire, the guy that threw George Brett out for the Pine Tar game at Yankee Stadium. Tim.
Yes. Tim. It wasn't Tim Joyce.
No, that's Jim Joyce.
Jim. Okay.
He was probably one of the.
Tim McClelland.
Tim McClelland. There you go.
I haven't heard in a long time.
Tim McClelland. It makes those were good umpires. I think CB Buckner has been voted 5 straight years for being the worst ump in Major League Baseball.
He's probably helped Angel Hernandez keep his job for as long as he did. As one of the worst umpires. Joe West was allowed to be around way too long because of his animations.
Right. Well, we are at the end of the show, but that we also have to look forward before we go. And of course, Swanee, the Mariners are coming into an interesting 12-game stretch. They return home. It looks like tonight, starting tonight against Boston. 3 against Boston. We're not in Fenway, but Boston and Seattle are pretty much neck and neck right there for that last wild card spot. They got 4. They traveled to LA for 4 against the Angels, which. I don't know about those 4 games. 2 against the Padres at home, 3 against the Orioles at home. This 12-game stretch is actually quite pivotal. Obviously, I think you mentioned pre-show that after this 12-game stretch, it opens up against the A's, the Royals, the Mets. So that the Mariners get a scheduled breather. But these 12 games, man.
I think we're going to find out a lot about this team in the next 12 games.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, man.
it's the company line. I was waiting
the
to
company
say it.
line.
Yeah, no, I think you're and looking at the pitching matchups with Boston, you got in these 3 games with Boston, you've got both Kirby and Logan Gilbert going. I think it gives the M's a good edge right there. Especially
We'll
and he's
see.
going against Pavetta, Bello, Crawford, so it's going to be formidable. But to go against Boston and have, I think, your 2 current best pitchers, that includes Luis Castillo, who will go, I think, Friday. I think that gives the Mariners a little bit of an edge on here, and they need it. They need everything they can, and if they win 2 or 3 from Boston, I'm sure after Wednesday's game, we'll hear about how they, quote unquote, won the series. And that's a day, but that is a day home game.
Right.
You know my feelings on those. Although the last time I mentioned that, they turned around and won. George Kirby pitched really good.
Are you talking about the Wednesday game?
The Wednesday game, the home afternoon games during the weekday, non-holidays. The Mariners just have a history of taking a shit.
Yep, 1 o'clock day game.
Except when George Kirby throws a really good threw a shutout against the Twins a couple weeks ago.
Right.
That really helped. That helped turn things around, Steve. After that stretch, though, after this 12-game stretch, the feel-good tour begins. The cavalcade of losers and bums that they're going to be able to face and tee off against is, it's like a lion going to a steak dinner. You got a couple. You got Houston in there.
Yeah, you do.
And then you get to the Mets. You got a 3-game series at Houston in there, but otherwise, boy, you couldn't ask for anything better in August. So I would say,
but you wonder if they
coal into the hype train engine, and the steam is starting to brew, and the conductor's about to say all aboard.
I will say this, that we have seen the Mariners play down to their competition. Right, that's my only concern.
Yes,
but that being said, though, the A's and the Royals, the Mariners, the Mariners have a track record of destroying the A's. So I will say this 12-game stretch, I actually have them going 5-7, 6-6 at the high end, 5-7 in reality. Maybe I think they lose 2 out of 3 against Boston. I think they split with the Angels. I think they split with the Padres and then lose 2 out of 3 against the Orioles.
If they split with the Padres at home, I know it's only a 2-game series, but they're also coming off an off day on Monday. Right. They have 2 off days that week. If they split with the Padres, that is a pant filling of, like I said earlier, every loss means more than every win at this point.
Right.
It's why I was so pissed. I was texting you left and right on Saturday.
Oh, I know you were
driving to my high school reunion. I was so mad that they blew that game because those are games you just can't piss away. So if they don't sweep that Padres series, I'm going to be massively disappointed. I was pissed when they split it last time in San Diego, but I actually see them in this upcoming week. I'll look at the whole upcoming stretch. I see them taking 2 or 3 from Boston. Okay. I see them.
You're not worried
with the Angels.
You're not worried about
them winning with San Diego. I'm gonna say they come out on the winning end, but they're not gonna get on the roll and dominate, and that's gonna be a problem. But it's gonna be just enough of a teaser, to keep the hype train in flow.
So you're thinking 6-6 or 7-5?
I'm saying 7-5.
Okay. I see my problem with the Red Sox is the fact that the Red Sox are a fastball first pitch hitting team. Okay.
Yes.
And the one thing now, granted,
and Tuesday's game against Bryce Miller will be an interesting watch for that.
Right. And the thing about it is I think that now, granted, they're tailor-made for Fenway Park, and this one's in Seattle.
Sure.
But that being said, the Red Sox have a good track record of performing in Seattle, and I just think, the Bryce Miller one, and then also the George Kirby start as well too. And Kirby uses his fastball to set up, and if he doesn't have, even if he's off a little on his location, he's gonna get ripped up. And we're talking 4 to 6 runs early. I would like to think that the matchup works well for Seattle against Boston starting tonight, but I don't know, man. Seattle is so at home. They don't do well against first pitch fastball hitting teams. I think that they and I said again, I think they do much better against the Angels. I still think they split with the Angels, and I think they split with the Padres. But maybe maybe they actually take 2 out of 3 against Boston, and then they finish. I'm saying 5-7, but at the high end, 6-6, no more.
Okay. I can buy that, and here's why: is because 2 of George Kirby's last 3 starts, I mean, he had that were not good. He had that good game against the Twins sandwiched in between, I believe. Let me look real quick. But he got lit up pretty good. Well, he got crushed by Detroit. I mean, the offense didn't help either on him, but he gave up. I think he gave up every run in that game. And then he got knocked around. He talked about first pitch fastball hitting teams. That was the Twins, and that's what happened last Tuesday. And they were lucky the M's outslugged him and won that game because the offense actually showed up and bailed him out. But his ERA has gone up to 3.49. So it's really been hit and miss. He's getting a good start and not a good start and a good start. He was a lot more consistent earlier in the year. Well, except when he played Pittsburgh and they tore him up. I think they homered off him 4 times. So I don't know. I got a feeling I'm going to say 7-5. And God forbid me being an optimist, but that's where I'm going with it.
Okay. Well, all right. Let's see.
Maybe I'm drinking Kool-Aid. I don't know.
So
I don't think a trade deadlines. I don't think a trade is going to make a difference in the world in that result. I'm not basing. I should add that I am not basing my prediction record off any trades that are going to happen because I don't think any of relevance are going to happen.
Before we go, we're at the end of the show, but I forgot at the top because obviously it's Mariner Monday, so we have a trivia question every show. Today's trivia, I forgot to do at the top of the show. Today's show, okay. Everybody understands that in 1995 they had the Miracle Mariners, the Refuse to Lose Mariners. Okay. Now there was an interesting transaction that happened. Okay. On, I believe it was July 14th, 1995, the Mariners signed a very important piece to their stretch run. He wasn't traded. He was signed because he was released, I believe, 3 days earlier by a National League team. 4 days earlier by a National League team. He comes to Seattle. Hold on. He comes to Seattle.
I'm showing my hands so you know that I'm not typing on the keyboard to look at this.
Okay. Now, if you remember, they traded for Vince Coleman. Okay. They traded for Vince Coleman.
For Vince Coleman? Okay.
Yes, they did. They brought Vince Coleman in. They traded for Andy Benes. They traded for Tim Belcher, both of those ended up working out great for the Mariners.
Yeah.
But this specific deal was basically a rebound signing from a National League team, which I will give you. He was released by the Philadelphia Phillies.
I was gonna guess Vince Coleman, but now I'm gonna say Norm Charlton.
100%. The answer is the Sheriff Norm Charlton, who was signed by the Mariners on July 14th, 1995, and obviously they
do not make the playoffs.
They do not make the playoffs without him.
Not even a chance. They don't even dare. So they'd have been done in probably late August. There would have been no September run. The Sheriff. Oh, God bless his heart.
By the way, he was brought back in 2001 in that stacked bullpen, and he was on situational lefty. And by the way, he actually ended up having that was his last season, and he actually ended up having one of his career years in 2001.
It was a good swan song for him. I think that was Jay Buhner's last season too.
100%.
If I remember right.
100%.
Yeah, he was battling a foot injury or something like that, the bone. Anyway, good show. We'll keep our eyes peeled. We'll stay in touch. And good show today. Action or inaction, and we're leaning towards inaction.
I mean, until they prove otherwise. I mean, granted, yes, we had a good week. They very much had action this week, but until they consistently show action, it's always going to be reaction. So, all right, that's going to do it for us. And of course, any news related to Mariners trade, go ahead and check out the Facebook page. Any updates will be updated on the Facebook page. And of course, if you want to rewatch the show, it's going to be available on the YouTube page. Thanks everybody for joining in. We'll see you next week. You guys have a classy week. Stay sexy, Seattle.